The empress grandly set out to marry the prime minister, who had rendered military services for her. However, upon arriving at the prime minister's residence, she found it empty. A servant, trembling with fear, replied, "The prime minister returned to his hometown on the day he was dismissed from office." The empress refused to believe it. How could he bear to leave her? Yet the servant produced letters that the prime minister had ordered to be burned, all of which were once love letters exchanged between the two. Only then did the empress realize that the prime minister was truly disheartened and, just a few days earlier, the prime minister had returned after 3 years of fighting abroad, reclaiming lost territories and repelling the Xiongnu, achieving extraordinary merits. In just 3 years, his hair had turned white, all because the empress had promised him before his departure that she would marry him upon his triumphant return. However, the first sight that greeted the prime minister upon his return was the new top scholar openly flirting with the empress in front of all civil and military officials. He had expected the empress to be overjoyed at seeing him, but instead, she wanted to charge him with crimes.
你可知罪？
臣何罪之有？
真当朕还是3岁小儿？秦学士都说了，匈奴险恶，杀人如麻，你竟擅自开启战乱，置我大燕天下于何地？
匈奴贪婪，屡占边境，为保大燕安宁，自当严惩不贷。
够了！不许匈奴之事，就由新科状元秦朗全权负责。
秦朗。
The top scholar immediately read out the imperial edict triumphantly, even demanding that the prime minister kneel to listen. The prime minister, having been granted a special privilege by the late emperor to not kneel before the monarch, refused. But the top scholar insisted on new rules for the new emperor and even had the minister who spoke up for the prime minister dragged away and executed. Witnessing the empress's indifference, the prime minister instantly understood her intentions. Without a word, he knelt down, silently counting this as the third to last time he would tolerate the empress. It turned out that before his death, the late emperor had entrusted the empress and the country to the prime minister, asking him to assist her in stabilizing the realm. He had thus promised the late emperor to give the empress 100 chances. Only when she exhausted them all would he leave the court. The new top scholar, arrogant and haughty, announced the edict stripping the prime minister of his title as regent. The empress watched coldly from the side, completely forgetting the promises she had once made to him.
太后说，以后你就是我的摄政王了。你看，日后你说什么，我便做什么。
陛下厚爱，臣定当鞠躬尽瘁，死而后已。
我不许你死，我要以后都听你的。
100次求，还是2次。
Upon learning of the prime minister's triumphant return, the empress dowager immediately summoned him and decided to arrange their marriage as soon as possible. Seeing the empress dowager's firm attitude, the prime minister had no choice but to agree. However, just after leaving the empress dowager's palace, the top scholar, who had been waiting at the door, rushed forward and deliberately fell down the steps. As expected, the empress arrived just in time to see this, and without distinguishing right from wrong, she accused the prime minister of hurting others out of jealousy. The Prince of Yen, standing nearby, testified that it was not the prime minister's doing, but the empress refused to believe him. She even suspected the two of colluding in secret, had the Prince of Yen arrested, and then reclaimed the prime minister's immunity token. The prime minister said nothing, handed over the token, and silently deducted another chance in his heart. By the time the empress dowager came out, the prime minister had already left in despair. She immediately rebuked the empress for disregarding their past affection. The empress, recalling their former bond, reluctantly promised to marry him as soon as possible. Yet, at the court session the next day, a minister bribed by the scheming top scholar impeached the prime minister for forming cliques for private gain, demanding his removal. Seeing the empress's hesitation, the prime minister instantly understood her thoughts. He took the initiative to hand over the seal of the prime minister's office, stating his willingness to resign. The empress made no attempt to retain him and instead appointed the scheming top scholar as the new prime minister. At this, the prime minister simply left the court.
天帝，臣答应你，容忍女帝100次，现如今已是最后一次，臣尽忠职守，无愧于心，是时候离开。